13th to order and start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I please ask for a roll call?
Supervisor Riley.
Present.
Clerk Anzaldi.
Present.
Treasurer Epikin.
Present.
Trustee Erda Thompson.
Present.
Trustee Jaffer.
Present.
Trustee Braybeck. Trustee Mills. Madam Supervisor, you have 5 members present.
Thank you. May I ask for an approval of the agenda?
Madam Chair, I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay, I'd actually like to add an item, 9.6, from our Parks and Recs Department for Double Up Food Bucks to the agenda for 9.6. May I have a motion for that?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a friendly amendment to authorize the supervisor and clerk to enter into a contract service agreement with Fair Food Network for the 2026 Double Up Food Bucks program, subject to the Township Attorney approval.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? We are bringing this because we did not have the contract from Fair Food Network in time for the submission for the board packet, but if we wait until the next agenda, we'll miss another farmer's market. We really don't want people who would be able to double up their food bucks for the bridge program to miss out. So I felt it was appropriate to go ahead and bring that to the floor. All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, added. I'm going to go ahead and open it up for public comment. Any person may come forward at this time to address the board. Anyone who wishes to speak is requested but not required to state his or her name and address for the record. Is there anybody who'd like to come up and speak? Good evening.
Good evening. Keith Apel, 4239 Rolling Meadow Drive, Ypsilanti, 48197. Discussing about item 9.2, the $275,000 that you guys are on the agenda to approve to distribute to the Homeowners Association. I started working this project about 3 years ago, back before some of you were even elected. And the road has deteriorated. The builder has left town. No one's there. I'm excited to see that there are funds available from the bond that you guys require the builder to have. I'm concerned that the funds are not enough for the construction that needs to be done in the neighborhood. And I'm concerned that the neighborhood residents are going to be stuck with a bill at the end of the day for construction. I learned that of the $275,000, about $118,000 is budgeted for asphalt repairs in the first section of the neighborhood. No one on this board and no member of the road commission can still answer why it's a private road when the approved subdivision is a public road. If it's a public road, why does it get plowed by the road commission? The road commission should not be on a private road. That seems very contradictory. The road commission says they never filed the paperwork to make it a public road. If it's a private road, my understanding is that there should be easements filed for access on a private road. There are no easements filed. I checked the clerk's office. I checked the Washington County clerk's office. There are no easements. I'm concerned that the pipeline construction or the road that you guys are requesting to Arbor Oaks, the pipeline company has not heard anything from anyone in 3 years. I'm in contact with them. The HOA has not contacted them. I know you're giving them 2 years to do that, but the construction that they are asking for is significant because they do not want to risk any oil spills. They're asking for a specific kind of road to be built, and they're talking that it may cost close to $250,000 alone. That was the one man's estimate. So if I'm at $250,000 and $118,000, I'm at $368,000. That's less than, that's more than the $275,000 budgeted. I don't want to get hit with the homeowner association fee. I don't want to get hit with a special assessment by the homeowner association. And my understanding of the bylaws is that the township is responsible for doing the work if the builder left town, not the homeowner association. You guys made an agreement, and the agreement says if they don't do it, you're supposed to you gave them 30 days, you were supposed to have a meeting, and none of this happened. I understand the process is convoluted. I understand multiple people worked on it. But if you have these proposed agreements and you have the subdivision development agreement, why don't we follow the subdivision development agreement? I understand the builder violated it, But for the township to get their money, or the township to get the work done, you gotta follow the agreement in writing. It's not okay for both sides to violate it. The HOA has nothing to do with the subdivision development agreement because they weren't around. So the subdivision development agreement is being bombarded by 9.2, and it seems that the subdivision development agreement just is no longer in force because the township doesn't want to do their work. So that's what I have to say. I'm interested if you guys vote for it. If you do, the road's going to be paved in 2 weeks. That's the biggest part of it. But my concern is that the easement into Arbor Oaks is going to be pretty much a nightmare. So maybe there'll be money there to help with that, but it's a private road, it appears, according to the road commission, so I'm not sure how much we could really work on that. I also don't know if the Arbor Oaks stub is public or private. It seems very strange that one would be public, one would be private. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Joe Ward. I am the treasurer of the Arbor Farms HOA Association, so I'm here to talk about the same item. We have been working on this since I've been elected for about 3 years, as Mr. Apel said. It has been convoluted by his interference by trying to negotiate with other people on our behalf without letting us know. I have also been in contact with BP for their pipeline. I have a contact to get the easement started to negotiate. Working with Director West in the back there, we have done quite a bit with the Washtenaw County Road Commission to understand that HRS failed to include an easement for the road in each of our plots. So there is no way for us to legally turn it over to the committee, to the county. Also, HRS is gone. I am one of the homeowners that also has at least $10,000 of the work that needs to be done in his basement, and there's no way for me to get a hold of them. They are the ones that we need to sue, but there's nothing we can do, and the township has been working with us for the last 18 to 24 months to try the best we can to get that done. Through our negotiations, we have put in a clause that Arbor Farms no longer needs the stub into Arbor Oaks. It is a private road on both sides. It is highly possible that BP will not give us a reasonable easement. It is also possible that this will greatly exceed our budget, even though we have lowered the need for the road from being daily traffic to emergency access only for fire trucks. That is only for Arbor Oaks, since they only have one exit from their subdivision. We put a 24-month clock on it, and currently the HOA Association is going to bank all of the remaining funds that we are not going to be using to get engineering, because we've already been in contact with 2 engineering firms to start planning for the road over the pipeline. BP will not entertain anything without engineers first, so we have to address that. But we put a 24-month clock on it because if for some reason we cannot do it, we plan to return the funds to the township so that they can work with Arbor Oaks to seek an alternative exit for Arbor Oaks out the other side, should that ever be developed. That is our current plan, because we cannot be on the hook for all of this. Our current bill for fixing the road is at $130,000. The $118,000 is missing a $15,000 chunk in the back that has been damaged because of the way it was paved. All of Arbor Farms is private. It is paved, it is plowed privately. We pay that bill every winter. We pay for the salting, we're paying for the mowing, so it is definitely private. I've also been in contact with the Road Commission on this as well, trying to make sure they do everything they possibly can. They have an inadvertently, Washtenaw County Road Commission inadvertently filed a permit for Prime 1 to do work under our road without it being a public road. So I'm still having some words with the Road Commission on that aspect, because they could have damaged our road like they have throughout the rest of the township. We vote in favor of this because without it, we cannot pave our road. And we are already looking at 2 sections of road that have been deteriorated so much that it has to be replaced, and that is included in this quote, along with ongoing maintenance. Our goal here is to get us out from everything HRS did, everything they left us with, so that we can actually finally just be a community and not worry about whether or not we're complete. So, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Is there any response to that? I would like to personally say that I know before I even got into office, Mr. Yapel had contacted me about this issue. We did meet with the HOA and Director West, and very impressive how much energy has been put into this. This is a very bad situation, and you all have been doing a great job trying to fix this, and I know Director West has been working with you, but she'll talk about it a little bit more when we get to that item. But yeah, thank you all for being so patient. It was quite the mess when we started, and hopefully we can get to a good resolution on it. But is there any other response or comments? Okay. All right. Seeing none, we will move on to an approval of the minutes. May I please have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting held on April 22nd, 2026.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right. Motion is passed. Moving on to public hearings, presentations, and proclamations. We have a proclamation to talk about designating May as the Motorcycle Safety Awareness Month in Pittsfield Township. And we have a great representation again. I remember last year. It was lovely to have you all back, Hot Rods. All right, well, I will read it here. So, whereas motorcycle riding is a popular form of recreation and transportation for thousands of people across the state and nation, and whereas motorcycles are a common and economical means of transportation that reduces fuel consumption and road wear and contributes to a significant way to relieve the traffic and parking congestion. And whereas May introduces the summer travel season and increases motorcycle usage. And whereas the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Motorcycle Safety Foundation have named May as Motorcycle Safety Month. And whereas states and motorcycle organizations across the country will be conducting a variety of activities to promote the importance of motorist awareness and safely sharing the road with motorcycles and remind riders to make themselves more visible to others. And whereas Pittsfield Charter Township has many citizens who are concerned about motorcycle safety for touring, recreation, and transportation. And now there, let it be resolved, Pittsfield Charter Township designates May as Motorcycle Safety Awareness Month in Pittsfield Township and urge all to recognize the importance of practicing safe driving and motorcycle riding practices. So I'm going to come over here. Maybe we can have a picture and we can present the proclamation. If you want to say anything, we'd love to hear from you as well.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name's Amy Backrack. I'm a Pittsfield Township resident of 16 years, member and the awareness champion in Hot Rods Motorcycle Awareness and Suicide Prevention Foundation. On behalf of our foundation, we would like to thank Pittsfield Charter Township, Supervisor Riley, Board of Trustees, Township staff, and especially Bryce Allmacher for your continued partnership and commitment of motorcycle safety and awareness in this community. Through your renewal of the important May Motorcycle Safety Awareness Month proclamation, we appreciate your advocacy for motorcycle awareness on the busy roadways of Pittsfield Township, recognizing the importance of safety, mutual respect, and sharing the road with motorcyclists is essential within the complexities of today's traffic environment. Through our combined initiatives, proclamations, education, participation in community events, yard signs, and social media, we can make a positive impact on safer travel for all motorists in and around Pittsfield Township. Together, we can promote awareness to citizens and motorists in the hope of accident reduction and saving lives. Be aware, motorcycles are everywhere. Thank you, stay safe, and may God bless all of you.
Thank you. Do you want to do a picture or anything? Or yeah, I think that would be nice. You can go down, yeah. Okay. I think last time we went down. Okay. Go down. It's a big trip for us. Yeah. Same time next year? That's always a good, it's always good. I always enjoy that, yes. Thank you. All right, and then we will move on to our public hearing to consider the establishment of a corridor improvement authority in accordance with Public Act 57, Part 6. I will go ahead and open the public hearing at 6:46 and ask Craig Lyon, our Economic Development and Capital Improvement Plan Administrator, to come up and give a presentation to talk a little about what the State Street Corridor Improvement Authority, CIA, is all about. And then open up the floor to any comments and questions and things afterwards.
Thank you, Supervisor. Good afternoon, evening, Board. Thanks for the opportunity to come up and speak with everybody. I'll try to make this as short, curt, and simple as possible, although if you love numbers, this will be great. If not, well, I'm sorry. If you do have any questions, please feel free to ask, or obviously, if you want to wait until the
Can
end.
the people see enough over there? I don't know how the.
It's all tilted towards you guys.
Yeah, maybe tilt it a little more that way. I don't, is that okay?
Put it all the way flat.
You guys tell me when.
I can still see it. Can you see it, David? Okay. Is that better for everybody? Okay. And then project if you can too as well, because, yeah. Yeah.
I'll talk.
I was going to say for online people, yeah, that's the thing, right? To make sure people who are zooming in are,
Shall I sing?
please no, please no. I have to take, yes, the supervisor says no.
All right. So again, thank you. What we have this evening is our first public hearing for the State Road CIA. Acronym stands for Corridor Improvement Authority. Before I go much further, I would like to introduce two folks that are here. We have our County Commissioner Caroline Sanders in the back, and also with the Road Commission, Brett Schlack, and Director of Engineering. Here with us this evening, so if there's any additional questions that have to do with maybe some federal policies and whatnot, we'll be able to hopefully get those answered as well. So again, going back to the first public hearing, which we're here for this evening, this is a requirement of the state, along with a number of other requirements that whenever a community wishes to establish a corridor improvement authority for an infrastructure project, there's a series of public hearings and resolutions that have to be passed in order to make sure that everybody is aware. So if you've been driving up and down State Street, going into Brood Awakening or a gas station, what have you, and you see a sign that kind of looks a little bit like that map there, it's on the side, that's what we're here for this evening. So real quick, the Corridor Improvement Authority boundaries, that's what this green area is. So this is the State Street corridor. And everything that is shaded in green would be incorporated into those boundary limits. Those boundary limits are essentially set by the state for properties that are within X number of feet of the State Street Road right-of-way. Jumping right in here, it's not a new project, and if I'm in somebody's way, I know I'm going to be in the way here. Not a new project. We've been talking about this since 2006, and quite honestly, it's probably even been before that. But in 2006, there was a state road corridor study that was launched to determine exactly what needs of the area were out there. Fast forwarding to 2013, there was an environmental assessment that was performed, an EA. What the EAs are to ensure that any improvements that are going to be performed throughout the corridor, when federal dollars are used, they make sure that the money and the project go hand in hand to ensure that the money is being well spent. That's what you get with a 1,300-page document. Moving up to today, we have the most current revision, the 2025 EA revision. Back in May, the Township Board authorized an engineering consultant to move forward with the revision of the EA. Every, I believe, 10 years, EA, if nothing is done within that time frame, they're no longer valid, so therefore they are required to be updated. Consistent through from the last EA to today is still so, accommodate existing projected traffic volumes, ensuring that those same volumes that are projected in the future, 2045 for instance here with the 2025 EA, are met, ensuring a complete street cross-section. That is going to be required, and I will get into that a little bit later, for any federally funded projects, and making sure that we have a safe roadway for people to traverse, whether you're in a vehicle, a motorcycle, where'd everybody go, or bikes, and also pedestrians. Conclusion on the findings in the 2013 to the 2026, 2025 EA, very consistent. Fair amount of crashes. There's a need for traffic mitigation for congestion. The existing cross-section out there is just not serving the traffic that is out there today and what will be out there in the future. This is pretty interesting. So in 2013, this data came from a 2010 AA DT, which is your average annual daily traffic volume. So in 2010, for the 2013 EA, a little confusing, south of Ellsworth Road, 17,566 vehicles. The projection for 2035 for that same area is 23,658. Now this is from 2013, projected out to 2035. Today, with the draft EA that's forthcoming, that data, ADT data, was from 2024, and though it says north of Ellsworth Road, south, north, it's the same intersection, we've got a number of 32,636 for current traffic volume, with a 2045 projection of 43,732. If we go back one slide, the 2035 projection was 23,000. We're already past that. We're at 32,000.
Isn't that apples and oranges, though, when you say north and south?
No, it's basically wherever they put that rubber line. So if they went on the north side of the roundabout versus the south side of the roundabout. So, because all that traffic is still funneling into that intersection, whether it be from the east, west, or south.
So basically, all those roads is just Ellsworth and State, or Textile and State, et cetera. What part of the road? Like north-south Ellsworth, doesn't matter, it's Ellsworth and State is the intersection.
Correct, yep, State and Ellsworth.
Same with Michigan Avenue. It's Michigan and State.
Correct. So summarized, Ellsworth, 23 for, or 2010 actual count, 17.5, 2035 projection, 23, 24, 32,000, and with a 24 or a 2045 projection of 43,000. Two of them in the red, two yellow, and two red indicating that they're already exceeded. So there's no hiding that the traffic volume out there is increasing. Crash data at the intersections. Actually, intersections have gone down a little bit, 10%. There's 11 less from 2013 to 2026. However, when we get into the road segments, so if you're looking at Michigan Avenue to Textile to Morgan to Ellsworth, that actually, and it's kind of here down here at the bottom, it's actually gone from 33 accidents to 70 accidents. So 112%, I always get yelled at because there's supposedly no such thing as 200%, but 212 or 112% increase. So What's this new cross-section going to look like? Per the EA, which is going to be the governing document that will recommend what that cross-section is and what will be required in order to mitigate that traffic and be compliant with federal regulations, consistent with what was discussed back in 2013 is a 5-lane cross-section. 2 lanes north, 2 lanes south with a dedicated left turn lane. Also incorporated into that cross-section will be bike lanes on each side of the road. And then on the outside of the road limits will be pathways either side of the road. How much does it cost? Right now, the draft EA is showing approximately $32 million. A lot of money. And that is for the road improvements only. Additional expenses that would be ultimately incorporated into that could be some additional utility locations, things that are unforeseen, street lighting, additional intersection improvements that are not normally incorporated into a construction plan that is considered standard, so mast arms or some other LED features or case lighting, things of that nature. All those expenses are on top of this dollar amount. This dollar amount is for 2026. The project's not starting 2026. Road Commission is trying to get some work done here later this summer, a very small section of it, but the majority of this project is forecasted to, in the short term, hopefully maybe around 2029 it could move forward. But that's going to be probably the earliest at which we would be able to begin seeing construction on the major corridor. Other ways that we can look at funding, or it will be funded, is obviously federal grant assistance. The federal government, on which the Road Commission will be seeking assistance from, they will pay 80%, and then local agencies are required to cover that 20%. So basically, without that 80%, this project, we would not see it for sure in our lifetime. It's a lot of money to bear. One thing I'd like to bring up, and it goes back to the way the funding works and the splits. These red lines here on the screen note where essentially the end of the buffer lane would be. So you're going to have the roadway, back a curb, and then there's a buffer, and then you get into the area where the pathways are. The pathways are going to be 100% of the responsibility of the township. Those are outside of Road Commission's normal funding responsibilities, because it's not for vehicular traffic and whatnot. So that is going to be one of the costs that will be borne to the township at 100%. But I'd like to reinforce, we don't do that, we don't get the 80%. And even though that's going to be our responsibility, the federal government will cover the cost, 80% of that, of the pathway. So how do we cover the cost of this project? So back in 2005, originally, the state introduced an economic development tool called a CIA, Corridor Improvement Authority. What these authorities do, allow you to establish the boundary, and then within those boundary limits, the property owners obviously pay property taxes, right? I like the look. No new tax. There's no tax implication here to a property owner whatsoever. This is what is very unique about this opportunity with the CIA. CIAs utilize the existing tax structure. We establish a base value, and going forward, those dollars are just diverted to and or shared between the taxing jurisdictions. So this is not a new tax. There is no additional cost for this road. And I do have a couple spreadsheets here that we'll be able to flesh that out so everybody can see that. Why start now? Large project, need to save money. CIAs are, I guess to put it in general consensus terms, it's kind of like a retirement. You don't go to work for 5 years, and then retire. Well, I guess you could if you hit the lotto. But a CIA is a long-term funding plan for infrastructure. It takes time to build. It's dependent on new development to come into the area, to be able to support it, and to be able to make these improvements so that the local jurisdictions are not bearing the cost directly for these improvements. When the construction will start, mentioned that earlier, looking about 2029, 2030. Some other funding options that I've been asked, well, what about an SAD or what about general fund? Well, special assessment district, typically the way those will work is all the property owners that are along a particular roadway per se, figure out the cost of the project, and then take the linear footage of that project, divide it out by that linear foot, and then assign a value to each foot of property owned. For instance here, 16,000 linear feet, $40 million overall cost. We're going to have inflation, other miscellaneous expenses that are going to jack that number up. That works out to be $1,250 a foot per each side. So, for example, there's a small business owner, 270 linear feet. If you did an SAD, that property owner would pay about $340,000. No. The vacant parcel that's up there, 573 linear feet, $716,000. Astronomical costs. Look at general fund to cover those costs, you're at about 1.5 mils. Why are these options not valid or viable? State Street is a regional corridor. It's not just the township residents that are in this corridor. There's people coming from York, there's people coming from Saline, there's people coming from 10, 20, 30 miles south and all the way around. State Street is the primary connector to Ann Arbor. It serves as a lot of overflow, especially during detour routes for I-94 or 23. Not to mention that people are coming from, obviously, as we said, other communities, other counties, other states, and for that fact, I mean, other countries. We have businesses that are located over here, and they bring people in from all over the world. So why would we put that burden on our taxpayers here to fund a project that has such a regional derivative to it? So that's why we're looking at the CIA and using the TIF component of tax increment finance. So here's some, this was actually a spreadsheet from 2013 when the original TIF was established. The next slide actually is the clean, we'll say the clean version. This one has been updated from 2018 when the TIF was actually terminated. And, you know, hindsight's always 20/20, so filled in some of the blanks with some actual numbers. And if it had not been terminated due to some economic issues back in the day, we actually would have almost $2.2 million in a reserve account to be able to go towards this project. At the time that it was terminated, back in 2018, only had about, was it 80, sorry for this, I'm not going to touch this. And I did. It was actually under $10,000 that it had in the account. So that can show you how quickly the TIFs can build when there is development If there's not any development, there's no money coming in. Therefore, there's no money that's being diverted. Everything stays the same. I don't expect everybody to read that, but this next slide, this is where all this information is being derived from. So taxable value right now in the State Street CIA district, we're sitting at $246 million of taxable value. What does that mean? That taxable value today would freeze. So all of the taxes that are generated, the revenue that's generated from that value right there still comes into all the taxing jurisdictions. A CIA will only work with the taxable values from the 2026, that dollar value, and going forward. These projections are based off of a 75-25 split, so 75% of that new revenue would be diverted to the CIA, with 25% still being shared with the taxing jurisdiction. Numbers that overall that would be collected. General fund, the township still would be collecting over $3 million in a 20-year term. The incremental capture for the CIA compounded capture, the same number would be $9.1 million. So it's a fair amount of money, but again, it's over 20 years. The other taxing jurisdictions that would be incorporated and included in this is the Washtenaw County Operating Fund, as well as Washtenaw County Parks. Here's their, I ran those scenarios there too, just so you can kind of get an idea. We're looking at an additional compounded capture from county funds of $4.6 million, and the parks, smaller amount, but $672,000 over that 20-year time frame. These are the totals, so without any deduction, the new revenue that would be coming into the boundary area is from development, just $19,500,000, with $14 million of that going to the CIA for road improvements and the public improvements and infrastructure improvements. So to try and clear up a little bit on the whole tax base structure, 2020, and I did mess up on this on the year. I used 25 and should have gone down to 46, but for demonstration and estimating, it's going to be more than accurate. So with a base value of $246 million, current projected annual revenue from those funds, $2.1 million. That number stays with the township. So every year going forward, township's still going to get that amount of money, and likewise with the other taxing jurisdictions. So as you continue on, you go down to 2034, there's going to be $298,000 of an annual incremental adjustment increase to the CIA, and $2,500 to the general fund. Now, what does all that mean? At the end of 20 years, and after all this breakout is done, general government still gets $54 million. The CIA is looking at $11 million. This is just township. It gets way too complicated when you start incorporating all the other taxing jurisdictions in. So still a lot of money that is not being taken away from local taxing jurisdictions. Makes it a little bit easier and a little more scalable when you can see a graph. The blue area, township revenues. The little orange dot down here is what we're talking about with the CIA. Very small amount when it's compared overall. This is county projection, the orange. Can't even see the CIA. I tried, I couldn't get it on there. But it's that small of a contribution to and from. Do nothing approach. You know, one thing that we don't talk about is what happens if we don't do anything and then we begin to suffer because businesses leave, there's too much congestion, people can't get to work, they get tired of, you know, the congestion and just the chaos of traffic and maybe even accidents. Something as little as 5% of a decline in your taxable value, when you look at township, county, and county parks, to the township, a 5% decrease in our taxable value equates out to 1.3, I'm sorry, can't see this. Yes, a difference of $1.3 million less. County, 5.3 million. County parks, 870,000. And that's only 5%. We have some pretty large businesses over on State Street to the tune of their taxable values are way up there. They leave, now we're going to get hit. What's the impact on existing millages? General fund, parks, public safety, they all add up to, might be in here, 8.5496. I forget the exact number. Calculate that out from current tax year to the next tax year. You have that increase of 12,500,000. It's an added increase of $780,000 to revenue at a 3% CPI. This is what we use when you're forecasting for millage rates. So if you're going to do a 10-year bond or a 10-year millage, one question I've been asked is, well, public safety millage, we're going to be taking money away from public safety. Based on the forecast, we're going to be sharing it. It's not a takeaway. Because when you forecast these, you're looking at averages. We forecast at 3%. Our actual taxable value last year increase was 6.9%. That is revenue that was never taken into account to be received. Now, granted, it comes in and that's great. But from the standpoint of taking money away, it's not, because the CIA is going to be working off of that increase, not any of the existing tax bases. So that 6.9, almost $1.6 million versus $780,000. Going back to those numbers that we were talking about, that $780,000, I mean, it's basically half. It's going to take a long time to even collect $780,000. Again, this is just kind of forecasting out budgeted revenues, showing that 3% versus a 6.9%. I don't know why it keeps doing that, but again, we're looking at increases of 200% from what is the forecast compared to a projection in actual. This chart here, kind of interesting. again, this is the CIA revenue, taxable value down here. Starting back in 2016, if the township, if we just kept going with our CPI and didn't have any new development to rely on for additional tax revenue and revenue generation, 10 years later, 2026, we'd be out here at $2.3 million or $2.3 billion for taxable value. We're actually today at $3.044 billion in taxable value. So again, this is your comparison between forecasting and actual. That's really what that is boiling down to. Again, lots of numbers that I was just going over, and I'll be more than happy to take any questions.
Open it up, if anybody would like to come up and ask questions, or the board like to ask questions. Yeah, I know
Yeah.
David would like to ask, Trustee Rayback, sorry.
I do. Thank you, Supervisor Riley. So Craig, I have a few that I took here, questions along your presentation. So
Sure.
first of all, thank you for making something really kind of complex as digestible as possible for us. So I just want to make a statement of clarification. So I have a process of I like to just restate what I think I heard for confirmation, make sure I
Sure.
have it coded correctly, and hopefully make it a little bit more understandable for other people that may have a little lack of clarity. Again, if we move forward with this, the tax base that we're collecting right now does not get impacted at all.
Correct.
It's really, we're sharing of just the growth, both the appreciation and value or any future development along that corridor. And we're only taking a percentage of that growth of either, again, new development or appreciation and value going forward.
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I understood that correctly. Thank you for that. Second, my question was, did these projections, when we were talking about the traffic study, there's been a couple of pretty large-scale developments that have happened in neighboring communities. I'm thinking specifically like Arbor South, where there's going to be approximately 1,000 new residential units right across the, I say right across, but relative, right across that roundabout. And that's obviously going to be folks that are using this area as well. So are those traffic projections take into account some of these larger scale developments that are underway?
No, those projections, and they have not even been considered in the EA. A couple of reasons. One, when in 2024, which is the data which was used, some of that information wasn't available. Plus, it's in the city of Ann Arbor. They are only looking at the traffic that is being generated from Pittsfield.
Got it, thank you. I think you did a good job, at least for me, clarifying, if we do nothing and if we decide we lost some businesses and we have a 5% reduction in that taxable value, what that means. So thank you for that. That was one of my questions. You answered that. But is it also fair, when you were mentioning how this would impact some of the millages that we've recently passed, like public safety being one, you talked about the sharing of that and what that looked like. But is it also fair to represent if we do this project and it has the anticipated impact of attracting more businesses, keeping more businesses, and basically making that area appreciate, is it possible that they're actually going to see a net increase in revenue?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I just wanted to ask that question. Thank you. And the last question I have, and I might think of more, is really for the Board of Trustees, I think. I just heard, I heard the pedestrian pass along State Street corridor, lighting and things of that nature. And I'm assuming all the tax captures and everything, this is for the construction and I think of the OpEx needs to build out this infrastructure.
Correct.
Not for the OpEx needs. So additional funds that we need to do maintenance on pathways, things of that nature, that is something that is separate from these dollars that we'd have to take into consideration as this project is considered.
Correct.
Okay.
The TIF funds are used for public improvements, infrastructure, public improvements only. So, 5-10 years down the road, those funds cannot be used for maintenance. Going forward, one thing that will help clarify that question, and we'll get into it much more in depth at a later date here, or later this year, and that is regarding the development plan. Mm-hmm. The development plan will outline all the different projects that will be part of this overall scope. Mm-hmm. So that is one nice thing with a CIA compared to some of your previous TIFs that were from, in the 80s when they first came out. It's one of the big arguments that, well, the TIFs, they just keep capturing money and it's taken away from the community, right? This is short-term, and the only projects that you can do are the projects that will be identified in that plan. If for whatever reason there is a project that you wanted to incorporate into that after the fact, then I get to do all this again. So it's very important that, you do it one time and it's over and it's done. It's a 20, like I said, 20-year projection, and when we can actually start these projects, it's really all going to be dependent on the revenue and when it's generated. Big development comes in, you start a little earlier. Development is slow, you're going to start a lot later. And I think it's important to note, too, that if for whatever reason it didn't generate the revenue, then there's no implication on the taxing jurisdiction to move forward with the project because there's no money. So it's not something that's going to be, oh, well, you already approved this, so if we don't get the money in 20 years, you got to do it anyway. No, it just doesn't get done.
And then I have two more follow-ups. When we shut this down the last time, when I say we, I'm talking about Pittsfield Township and whatnot. I mean, a lot of us weren't on the board at that time. As you were just alluding to, if the funds aren't there or if the decision is made at some point to back away from this, the unused funds just go back into our general fund.
Correct.
At that point.
Yep.
So there's really, outside of the investment of planning and whatever infrastructure we are to that point, really, we are just putting money in a separate pool, so to speak, so that we have plans to appropriate. But if we could make a choice as a board to take those funds back, at our,
Absolutely.
yes. Yeah, you see where I'm going with that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Something to terminate, it's something as simple as the board passes a resolution.
Got it. I think I'll yield for right now. That's all the questions I have this time. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, are there any more questions, either of, yes,
I have
trustee?
some general comments and maybe a question or two. This is just a Michelle thing, I think. If the board is going to receive or hear discussion points on amounts, because I can't really see that screen at all, and I don't know how many other people can look at the numbers or even think about, do these numbers make sense to me or anybody else? So I think going forward, anytime the board is presented with this kind of information, it would be really helpful if that presentation was included in the packet, because I'm not sure,
Sure.
I tried to write stuff down and I don't know if I got it all. I don't think you have this information yet, but I would be really interested going forward knowing what the breakdown is for the local cost and the local cost only, because I understand that we're expecting or wanting or desiring the federal government to pay for 80% of our improvements, but that only covers so much, and I want to know, okay, so the road improvements are going to cost, 18 million, say. I have no idea. I'm just making these numbers up. And we know that we're going to get 80% from the federal government, and we're going to have to, the local match is going to be like 20%, right? Yep. But then we have all these costs on top of that, including the pathways and the street lights and, some of the things, the utility stuff that you were mentioning. So what is the cost above the 20% for just the road part? So I'm really going to be interested in those numbers.
Sure. If, Clerk, if I could just put an answer to that. So this presentation here this evening, I don't want to say it's premature, but for the most part, we're going to see it all again.
Yeah.
And that is going to be during the development plan process when we get to bringing that forward for review.
Yeah.
That's going to be the document that everything that you just mentioned, it will delineate out exactly who's responsible for what and those values.
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying that, but when I'm asked to look at numbers, I want to actually see them.
Sure.
To be
Yep.
honest. Okay, and so the next thing that I would just like to mention that I kind of think about when I think about the CIA is when you're saying there's really no tax diversion because we're getting revenue growth. And so this is money that has not ever been realized, so we haven't been using it. And that's why there is no impact to the budget and how much we spend. But I always think about like the increased cost of expenditures as we go forward, because what things cost now is not what they're going to cost in 10 years.
Sure.
And it is possible that we're going to need that money. So that is something that I quite think about, like when we say there's no diversion of money, well, there kind of is, because if we don't have that money available, if that's not going into general fund, then we can't use it to pay for things that we are going to want, because everything's going to be more expensive. Salaries, construction, supplies, whatever. So I do always think about that. Also, there's like some kind of increased cost in when you're going to build out and make these improvements, it does cost a little bit more utility-wise. It puts maybe a bigger strain on our public safety. It'll put more of a strain on parks because they'll be responsible maybe for some pathways, I don't know. So I think about those things when I'm thinking about this very large project and me not having a good probably understanding of what's going on. I would like to make just one more note, if you give me 1 second. The thing about going forward with the project and then maybe in 10 years assessing and saying, hey, we really don't have enough money to complete the project, let's just stop here or whatever. Or even if you're doing it after 5 years when we haven't even started the project. There are a lot of costs that go into the project that will never be recovered if we decide at a later time not to go forward. There are costs such as planning, engineering, your time, which
Sure.
you have been working really hard on this, and I do understand that and appreciate you taking the time to very thoughtfully think about these things. But, for me, I feel like things are just, I feel like I still don't have enough information. So that's just my 2 cents worth, and I will return it back to the supervisor and maybe allow anybody else from the board.
Yep, next person would like to speak. Yes, please come up. Yep.
Yeah, my name is Bob Schrader. I live over in the Inglewood Parks Estates. I guess a question I have is you had this a CIA in 14,
Yes.
and you had it again in 18. What
No,
caused those to,
It originated in 14.
Right.
And then it was in existence for 4 years and then terminated.
okay, I'd like to understand what happened to them. I mean, we chose to terminate?
No,
The township, or?
Township. At that time, due to the, economic conditions and that, and,
I did speak with the previous supervisor and asked her why it was terminated, because I was curious myself, and she just said that it had been a downturn and we weren't collecting any money, and it just seemed like, but sort of like a 401K. If it kept going, it would have increased. By the time with the downturn, it just got terminated prematurely because of the downturn in the economy, is what she told me.
Okay, and 18 was, I remember you talking about there was something in 18 also?
no, it's just when it was terminated.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, they're long-term. It's an investment. Or it should be viewed as an investment.
Ms. Aronis do you want to come up? Is that okay? Or you want to stay from there? Oh,
If you could,
yeah, you want to come up? I don't know if you're able to come up and speak, or do you want to stay back, from back there?
Telling me it's time to go.
Oh.
As much as she's incredibly enjoyed your presentation.
I think she's quite the trooper.
She did not. Christina Laronis, 151 East Textile Road, and I've made it very clear that I'm 100% opposed to this concept. Obviously, these are two separate things, and I want to make sure that everybody understands. We're talking about, obviously, we need a plan for State Street, and we've done several engineered plans over the years, funded through different methods. Generally, businesses along the corridor contributed quite a bit of money to developing a State Street plan, a State Street corridor improvement plan. And obviously we need that. And we need to plan for improving State Street, and we need to have that in our master plan in order that every business that comes in then contributes their share. We're not supposed to be paying for developers' improvements in advance so that they don't have to pay for them. Developers, I think I like this other mic better, sorry.
Yeah.
This one, how do you, I don't want to have feedback. Here's how we funded improvements in the past. And in 2013, when this came up before, I was also incredibly opposed to it. Our township has never done TIFs or DDAs or that sort of thing, and we always did extremely well financially. It was not until there was a decision after we were voted out in 2008, and we had stood by the standard method of Pittsfield Township, which was that developers pay for their own improvements, and that they would pay a lot through very strong political will and through proper planning and discussion with every developer that went in. We were able to get $5 million of road improvement money from the Walmart project that went in, $5 million. And just to clarify how that political will fell off after we were voted out of office, Costco put in $500,000 toward road improvement, and they were also a very large driver of traffic in that area. So $500 million we were able to get when the Walmart went in. We got pathways all the way around, concrete paths 10 feet wide, all kinds of things done, conservation easements, and then there sort of stopped to be a will of asking developers to pay their fair share. They're the ones who are going to profit. They need to pay for their improvements. They need to pay for the utility hookups. They need to pay for their, as much as we can get them to pay for, because we're never going to get them to pay for what they really will use, because we don't have what's called concurrency in the state of Michigan, where they actually have to contribute, like to the school district, the amount that they're going to increase the use of it. But we are able to extract quite a bit just through negotiated agreements, and in the past we've been successful with that. And in 2013, I did speak to the different taxing authorities who were going to be hit with this TIF. And this is, I don't know how you can say this isn't a new tax. I mean, it's technically not a new tax, but we are diverting our tax dollars away. I mean, we're diverting our tax dollars that we pay our hard-earned money into this specific project, which will benefit the developers, particularly of Avis Farm South, which is proposing a massive project. Massive residential, and it's just incredibly dense and large. And they would be, I would think, the major beneficiaries of this, because all of the incremental increase that this development will bring will be sucked off into paying for the roads. Rather than them paying for it, they would take our tax dollars, capture them, and pay for their road improvement. So I'm disappointed that it takes the onus off of the developers who make so much money off of their developments in our township, and then puts it on the backs of the taxing authorities. I'm sorry, my mouth is dry. It's the one way. We have two special voted millages in Pittsfield Township, public safety and parks, and voters both were asked to increase those last time around, and they did. So they were asked to, and they did. And we were told that we really needed that money, and now we're being told it's okay to strip away some of that money. Those special voted millages can never be used for anything other than what they're identified as, parks and public safety, except with a TIF. So this is the one way that you can rob a special voted millage. This is the one way that you can rob money from what the taxpayers identified as wanting to put into parks and into public safety. And there's a lot of speculation about, like, the idea that our taxable value would drop 5%, I think is unheard of in Pittsfield Township, and so that's an interesting thought, but that's just not going to happen. It's not a blighted corridor, it needs some work, and each development that has gone in has done a set of improvements, and that's why it's important to have a plan. You want to have a corridor improvement plan. What we don't want to do is a TIF to pay for those road improvements. We want each development that goes in to pay for their part of the plan. And in many instances, they have done that. Textile and State, there was a special assessment district done on Avis Farm South and on the other four corners to install that traffic signal that's there and to widen and improve that intersection. When I first moved here, I don't even think there's a stop sign there. It was just, people just drove, you know, it was like a 2-lane, it was wild. But now there's a very nice traffic signal, left turn lane. That was all done through a special assessment district on the developers who would benefit, as it should be. And then that's also been true of some of the additional lanes, and then each development that's gone in has generally put in their section of the center turn lane. They've done some road widening, and they've put in some sidewalk on each side. And they've also put money into, we have a sidewalk millage in areas where it didn't seem practical to the Planning Commission to actually build that little piece of sidewalk. They instead asked them to put funds into a millage, a separate sidewalk millage. So there are funds available to build those pathways in a different fashion. What we need is a plan. What we need are the drawings. And Clerk Anzaldi is 100% correct that there is a lot of expense that goes into creating a convoluted and intricate method for scraping money off of the taxpayers' hard-earned property taxes in this fashion. And those include lawyers, planning consultants. There's also a group that's called the Corridor Improvement Authority, and I don't think that they're paid, but they're an appointed body, not a governmental elected body, and they're in charge of all of this money. So it's a sub-government that's not elected by the people, and the people have no authority over, that controls how these funds are done, how they're spent. So there's every reason not to do the TIF. There's every reason to do, of course, an excellent plan for the corridor, and to have each developer, as they go in, install their segment of it. And I think we've missed the boat in a few opportunities. There have been places where we could have gotten more. And we've also got a number of IFTs, so tax abatements, so businesses that are getting tax abatements, and now they want us to, the taxpayers, to pay for their road improvement, which I don't think we should have to do. So, you know, there are many other ways to come up with our 20% match in order to access federal funds. And typically that's just done through proper budgeting and accumulating reserves and setting funds aside, and like we have that sidewalk millage for one thing. But to do it in this way, what you're saying is it's such a pig in a poke, I guess would be the old-fashioned term. Avis Farm South may explode with development, and the incremental increase may be extraordinarily high on that particular parcel. And there are some other parcels where the same may be true. And we are going to lose all of that. So it absolutely is a tax on the people. And if you just Google opposition to corridor improvement authorities, they're always controversial. They have been since this tool has been created. And as Director Lyons pointed out in 2006 when I was in office, and I think Andrea Thompson was also in office at that time, or on the Planning Commission, we also did do a corridor improvement plan. We did do a plan then, and that's just how important that is. But to do a TIF, I would never do a TIF. I think it's a terrible idea. I vote no, so whatever. Oh, and just one more thing real quick. I'm having a little trouble understanding how this rolls out. I'm glad you pointed out where the signs were, because the last time you guys did this in 2013, there were big signs, and I haven't seen any of them. So you're saying there are signs posted about it? Okay, so I've just missed them. I guess I just have not been looking when I drive, but there's a process and there's a period of time for each of the taxing authorities to opt out. The libraries need to know when they can opt out. The Saline Library was very opposed the last time. The schools, everybody that's going to be hurt by this, and they will be hurt by this, needs to know that they can opt out. So I want to be sure to go and talk to them. WCC was another one, and they regarded it as an illegal investment. The way they described it in their discussion at WCC was that the state of Michigan gives them authority to invest their money in only particular ways, and that's true for the township too. And they felt that by siphoning off a percent of their millage, they were in effect greenlighting an illegal investment. So I thought that was an interesting way of looking at it, and they voted it down too. So one of the reasons that it was collapsed the last time, and we, the township, gave back all the money to everyone who opted in, and it went back to the general fund. But what we lost, we paid for the lawyers, we paid for the consultants, we paid for the publications, we paid for 22 signs, which aren't cheap. There's a lot of money that goes into creating this, and they're just simpler ways to fund road improvement and more fair ways to fund road improvement. This isn't one of them. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, did you want to, I have Commissioner Sanders.
Good evening. I wasn't going to speak, but I'm going to. I have had the opportunity to get some more in-depth information from Mr. Lyons related to this project. As I always do, I've got 50 million questions. Trustee Braybeck mentioned Ann Arbor South development, and I want to address or try and do maybe a poor job of a comparison between the two, because I don't think that they do compare. But we're talking about, well, first let me start with this. I happened to be traveling down State Street the other day at 5 o'clock. If you know what that's like, it's horrible. 94 was backed up. Both entrances from South and North State Street were backed up. The on-ramp entrances were backed up. That is a problem that is going to continue to grow as we, and I'm talking about Pittsfield, has growth. We're not even talking about the push from Ann Arbor traffic that comes across I-94. When you talk about the Arbor South development, the major difference between that is that that is a privately held entity. We're talking about, I think, my own opinion, we're talking about what is in the best interest of our public good. My question kind of goes also to when you have that level of congestion every day at 5 o'clock, let's say starting at 4-ish, right? If you live here, you know better than to even try and get on the I-94. And I've got a question about what type of strain does that put on our public safety when they have to respond to crashes? What type of liability does that put us in? If someone were to try and say, well, we're going to try and sue some of these entities that have not tried to alleviate the traffic stress, or in another word, poorly designed roads, right? Maybe the accident wouldn't happen if there were some investment or more investment put into the roads. I don't really have an opinion on TIFs, but I am concerned that there may be a sentiment of we don't want anybody coming into our community, we don't want our community to grow, And so we want to stop any types of efforts to address the fact that we are exploding in Pittsfield Township. This is a very sought-after community to be in. And you have to spend money to make money. Approving this would not stop the elected body from increasing what you ask for when businesses want to move into our community. It would not stop you from being able to do that and sort of replenish what we're saying we think we would lose. So I'm not certain that we are in a position, safety-wise, and for the benefit of our residents, to say this is not a good idea. That road has to have some attention. 80% to me is huge. I'm not saying that 20% isn't a large price tag, but I guess what I'm asking is, are we looking at what is in the best interest and the safety and well-being of our residents currently and into the future? I understand, from my own standpoint, what it's like to kind of deal with previously made decisions by other electeds that came before me, but I don't think that you hold growth hostage to what happened 20 or 30 years ago. And I have faith in all of you as electeds that you are going to do the right thing and that you do ask the right questions and that you do intend to do what is best for the residents. So I'm not telling residents one way or another what way to vote, but I've asked enough questions that I think it makes sense to me that this is something that we need. This isn't a want. This isn't cosmetic. This is a safety and growth issue. And we are growing. We are exploding. And we do have people, as Mr. Lyon said, coming from all over into our community. And we have a responsibility to them as well, even if they're visitors. So if we were in a less stable position, I might look at it differently. But this is so different than the Arbor South project because we are public and we are trying to protect our public. This isn't a privately held situation asking for a tax break that is not addressing safety issues. And in fact, because we haven't taken advantage of trying to forecast into the future, we haven't even thought about the amount of traffic that might come if the Arbor South project is approved, which is, I don't even want to think about it. So I just wanted to come forward because there are those of us that do ask the questions. Unfortunately, the public doesn't always know what we're asking, but when I say I'm a grill master for questions, I am a grill master. I'm not telling you to trust me, but I do think that I try and keep my word. Mr. Lyons can tell you I had 1 million questions, and it poured over into an additional hour after the meeting was over with. So I just want to say that I trust my electeds, and I believe that there is a level of expertise and intelligence sitting at that table where you're sitting that makes us as residents be able to be comfortable and sleep well at night knowing that you know what you're doing. So, I'm done.
Thank you. And I will say that, obviously, at one point, we'll bring this to the county. And if the county opts out and does not do this, I don't think it's worthwhile. I think the extra money we're bringing in and we're having everybody kind of, sort of like having, again, a 401k where grandma's putting in and you have the extra money. I think that's really where the value comes in because we're putting the money in and then the county's also putting in because it is a thorough way. And I just want to be able to address, too, the amount of money, my understanding was that this, the amount of money that was put forth with the lawyers and all the planning and things was done previously, and this is revitalizing it. Can you speak to how much money this will actually cost, to actually develop? upfront.
Can I make one real quick point of
Real quick one,
clarification?
before he
Just
finishes
super
that?
quick. I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't any confusion between what I was saying about Arbor Farms South, which is on the corner of Textile and State and is undeveloped land.
They both sound alike, yes.
Yeah, Arbor Farms South, which, or, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know.
Avis
Farms here, and then Arbor
South.
Farms
Yeah,
on the other side of the
Arbor
highway.
South is in the city of Ann Arbor, and that's a different
Yeah,
project
on our
entirely.
border, yeah.
So what I was talking about is right in that green blob there. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry, go ahead and answer the question, I'm sorry. Yes.
Sure, no. Yes, majority of the expenses have already been incurred back in 2013 and 14. Yes, we have some sign expenses. I think to have the signs laminated was $200 and another $100 for some of the wood. And then I went out and installed
And the
them.
mailings, I would.
And the mailing was $190 a mailing. So right now, I think I want to say less than $1,000.
I do think the majority of the costs were incurred back when it was first.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to
Yes.
make sure that we're all, that's a very good valid point about putting money into it and then not getting money back. And I do think that if we were spending a great deal of money up front, or that we were not getting the county to pay into it, that this would not make sense. But with, no extra money up front, the county putting into it, putting on the side and savings, and being able to pull it back at any time if we choose to, does make a big difference to me. But
The development plan that was put together back in 2013-14, the same development plan will be utilized going forward with some modifications that would be more conducive for today. But and those revisions will be made in-house. They will not be required to be sent off to a consultant. All of those costs have already been incurred, so it's really just bringing everything back, reviewing it, updating, and bringing it forward.
is there, I know, other people haven't had a chance to speak yet before we go back for seconds? Yes, I see someone back there. You could.
Hi, my name is Katie Adams, and my family has property on the south end of State near US 12. And I just have a couple little comments or questions.
Yes, please.
I'm not necessarily expecting them to be directly answered, but things that I'm thinking of as I listen to this is I'm hearing a sense of urgency about addressing this situation with public safety, and I'm hearing a disconnect that this whole approach is a long-term kind of solution. So I'm not seeing how this actually helps to address an urgent public safety issue within the community. And it sounds to me, and in my understanding of financial issues or ways of raising money within townships and stuff, that there are much more timely, there are ways to do this in a more timely manner, to be getting funds to be doing this in pieces, for example, as was being described with having businesses more involved in helping for these developments. I think that the idea that somehow this is a public safety issue and therefore it coming from public dollars is the only way to be addressing public safety, or is the most appropriate way, and not seeing the role of private entities in contributing to our general public safety when they are operating businesses within our community, it seems like a real disconnect, and that we shouldn't be tiptoeing around the role and the importance that they play in our community and the responsibility that they should be having to be contributing to the communities that they want to be operating in. I feel like there's a lot in our society that is tiptoeing around the corporate interests and feeling like, oh, heaven forbid, we push them and then they don't want to be here or something like that. And I just think that whole mentality is really harmful for actually having a value of really feeling that our community is of value and that we want people here, we want even businesses operating within our communities that value the public safety, that value the contributions that they're making. And so we want to attract those businesses anyway, right? The other thing is I haven't heard anybody talking about public transportation. State Street is notably an area where there is no public transportation corridor, and I haven't heard anybody talking about that. I like the bike trails and the walking spaces. I think that's wonderful. I want to see more of that. But I would also like to see some other ways of addressing congestion and car traffic with some more attention towards how public transportation, especially with more businesses going in down near US 12 and these bigger family communities going in down there. All right, those were the points that I wanted to raise. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you.
I just want to address that one about the community, you can, I just in general, community benefits, which in no way, regardless of whether this goes through or not goes through, that is something that we always do, is we always look for what's called community benefits. So when a company is coming in, we sit down and talk about what that would be, whether it's paving a road nearby, I think, if there's some more congestion coming in or adding sidewalks in or whatever, that would never change, and that is something I totally agree. And as far as the public transportation goes, Deputy Almacher was talking a little about some of our moves towards that, and that would definitely be something we would be talking to the Transportation Authority about doing more in that time frame. As far as like the timing goes on it, unfortunately, it definitely is one of those things, whereas Brett from the Road Commission can tell you, we have to start planning 2 years ahead to get to the point where we know it's coming. And yes, should this have probably been something we looked at, years ago? Not necessarily, yes. But your points are all valid of what it comes down to, and that we will definitely, whether or not this goes through, those are all need to be addressed. And I'm going to pass it out to Trustee Erda-Thomason.
Okay. I'm glad you guys brought up what the contribution for Washtenaw County will be. Right now, from what you've presented to us, it's crickets. So I would be I'd like to know what are they going to contribute, if at all. And I do agree that the numbers you're presenting to us are I can't read them. I got really good vision, and I like to have seen something more in front of me than just, for the general, for everyone to see. But I am apprehensive about the costs associated with this and how it will actually work. And considering that the Washtenaw County hasn't said anything yet. So, I know we need a plan. I know that area needs to be addressed. Do we just need to address it ourselves and not have a TIF? I don't know yet at this point. I'd like to see your numbers presented to us that I can read them.
Absolutely, and I appreciate that. And that will be, you will be getting, obviously you'll have this presentation. And as I mentioned earlier, this is kind of a precursor, because I knew there was going to be questions, and trying to get as much information out there as possible to be as transparent as possible. This is a public hearing for the notice to proceed. So we're not even into the point where we're going to have the development plan information for review. We do have some, luckily we just got last week the EA draft version, and that's where that $32 million came from. In high level, 80% of that $32 million is funded by the government, 10% Road Commission, 10% Township. However, going forward and later this summer, between now and then, all of these numbers will be flushed out, and you will have a very, very detailed plan that identifies all of these questions, but unfortunately, we're not there yet. This is, I guess maybe hindsight 2020, maybe too much information for the time, but I would rather have you have too much information than not enough information at any given time. But no, absolutely, it's more than duly noted. You will all be provided with a lot of information.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a couple of points of clarification I want to make. When Commissioner Sanders, first of all, I was really appreciative. She came here, spoke as both a resident as an elected. When I brought up Arbor South, it was not to make a comparison between the two projects and the kind of ownership of them. It was really more along the lines of what I heard, in our last EA, is that we are already exceeding projections from people that are traversing State Street corridor. And I was just asking simply, like, with such a large residential development that would be happening in such close proximity, that's just going to exacerbate the problem, and really goes into what I was trying to drive at. as well. My line of questioning is, aside from the business development and the corporate supporting more attraction for businesses, I already think of this as a safety issue and really a public health thing, just a convenience thing. Like, I used to live, I've lived on both sides of the State Street corridor, off of a subdivision on Platte and now in a subdivision off of Lore, and I have to traverse that every day. I do. I used to work in Avis Farms when both my kids were born in 2007 and 2009, and going to see my wife in the hospital, if it was anywhere after 3:30 p.m., it's ridiculous that there's an emergency, and it took me an hour and a half to get to the University of Michigan Hospital. And that's before this problem's gotten as bad as it is now. And that's not just because of business development in that region. It is, as you said, it's a cut-through, and more people, as this region has gotten more and more populated, more and more people use that cut-through. So I do appreciate something that was said about not taking the foot off, and I appreciate Ms. Lawrence's comments about the corporate dollars that need to be invested as well as those businesses come. But I personally see there's a both-and strategy here, because it's not just the businesses that are contributing to the extra traffic there. It is a regional cut-through, and that's why we need partnership with Washtenaw County and the regional area to invest dollars there so we can make that better for our residents that need to traverse that, even if they're not working in businesses or owning businesses there. So I just wanted to bring those comments up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor, if I could just
Yeah, and maybe you could even go,
add.
I know it's good to maybe more clear about what the timeline will be and what the process will be, so people understand a little bit about like where we're at and waiting for, because I think that's confusing too. And then, of course, when the actual numbers come in, when that will be presented as well.
Sure. So again, right now, this is just a notice to proceed. We're entertaining the concept to establish a CIA. So, keep the questions coming. So that just gives us, more options and more information to be able to provide back to you to answer your questions. Going forward from this point, the next time that the board would see any information regarding the CIA and the development plan and the what was mentioned about a the CIA board, that isn't until towards the end of July. So that's going to be the next time that there will be an actionable item. However, before that, probably maybe about halfway through, we will probably more than likely have a working session to be able to flush out and explain many of the questions that were asked here today. We're waiting on information. However, if we don't start this process now, and the longer that we wait and the further we get down the road, no pun intended, the less options that we will have in order to make these improvements and continue to deal with all the traffic and congestion and accidents and whatnot. I would like to say just one last thing with respect to corporate participation and those dollars and that. We have a representative from the Road Commission, Brent Schlack, and I also like to, Director West from Community Development. They work tirelessly with developers daily to make sure that their developments do not impact the area any more than what the current impact is. Textile and State Street, the developer was required to fund lane widenings and mid-block crossings to make sure that pedestrians from neighborhoods can get to and from. The Road Commission and the Township work tirelessly to ensure that we are getting as much as we can from corporate America. However, you can't have Company A pay for Company C when it doesn't even impact their property that's a quarter mile down the road. This area is approximately about 70% developed. So the 30% is what we're relying on, and then any reinvestment and redevelopment in the area. But once you get a curb cut, once you get a driveway, unless you're making a big addition on that property, Brent, please tell me if I'm wrong, but the ship has kind of sailed if it's been permitted back in 2000. unless they're going to go through and do some major renovations and do something to be able to allow the road commission and the township to be able to revisit the property and the parcel for a development perspective, they're allowed to use the road.
When does the 60-day opt-out period begin and end for the other taxing authorities?
That's not until October. Yeah, this is just like I said, the notice to proceed. All of that is later this fall. This is a very, very lengthy process.
I just wondered when
So,
it began and when it ended.
yeah.
We're not there yet.
No.
The 60-day opt-out period occurs after the formation of the Corridor Improvement Authority Board?
Correct. Because the Corridor Improvement Authority Board would make the recommendation of a development plan. And
And that's when the opt-out periods begin?
yes, opt-out, right now, looking at projections, we're October 15th, and then it runs for 60 days.
Okay, because I want to make sure the libraries know.
Yep, I've met with them.
Is there any other comments or questions? I want to make sure everybody gets at least a chance to speak. Okay, any final words, comments? Okay, this is just a beginning process, but I appreciate the input and all the comments and information. And I yes, next time it would be very nice to be able to have.
No, absolutely.
But I understand what
absolutely.
your point is, that next time the numbers will actually mean more once we have the updated TA.
Yeah, this probably shared way too much for a notice to proceed, but I'd rather have more than less.
Supervisor, I'd
Yes,
like to make
please.
one more request. I think when this comes back and we have a next session on this, the data I think would be great. Craig, I think that's been established. But I think it'd also be good in conjunction with our finance team to look at what does that impact, what is that forecasted impact to our general fund and things of that nature, which is probably separate from the work that Craig's going to provide. Even if it's just rudimentary, I'd like to understand what the impact would be to our forecasted captures for our general fund and for our other kind of funding
Absolutely.
mechanisms.
I know that Craig Ryan has been working with our finance director throughout this process, but that would be nice to be able to have, yes, the
Yep.
director of finance here as well to talk a little more about how it affects us in general.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That number will change based on who opts in and opts out. So like, you probably want to have, like, if WCC doesn't pay into it, one number that impacts your general fund, and like if Washington County doesn't opt into it, how does that impact your general fund? Because it will impact your general fund based who opts in and opts out.
As the supervisor mentioned earlier, if Washtenaw County is the next largest, if they were not going to participate, then chances are it would not move forward. We're only
It wouldn't
looking
be
at
worth it at that
3
point, in
taxing
my
jurisdictions to
opinion.
participate. So,
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Okay.
Thank you.
I will go ahead and call the public hearing at a close at 8:08. And we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the consent agenda. Please have a motion.
Madam Chair, I move to consent agenda 7.1 to 7.8.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, the consent agenda is approved. And we will move on to department reports and updates. We have 8.1 and 8.2, and I would like to be able to call up Deputy Almacher to talk a little about the reports that are in your packet. These are first quarter reports from AAATA and People's Express. It's our first quarter with People's Express, and to give us a little update on where we stand.
Yeah, thanks Supervisor Riley, and good evening everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to give a very brief update on our 2 primary transit providers in the township. We'll start with the AAATA report that's first in your packet, I believe. Nothing too noteworthy here. Fixed route ridership remains pretty steady across the board. There's a small uptick system-wide, in the township, and a small decrease system-wide of 1.7%, so nothing too notable there. We do see a 9.8% decrease in A-ride utilization in Pittsfield Township, which for those that don't know, that's AAATA's accessibility service. we tend to figure that decrease that we're seeing in the first quarter of 2026 is probably due to the introduction, excuse me, of new transit services in the township and countywide. As you all know, People's Express offers a level of accessibility, and they offer curb-to-curb and door-to-door service, which is similar to what A-Ride provides. And then, obviously, through the county senior millage, Jewish Family Services and the WAVE also operate free transit, free curb-to-curb service for any county resident who is 60 years or older. So that's likely where we're seeing that decrease. I will move on really quickly here into the People's Express side. So as you all know, very exciting time in the township. This is the first quarter that we have had People's Express operating in the township. And for any residents that aren't aware, People's Express is a door-to-door, curb-to-curb public transportation service that can take you to and from anywhere in Pittsfield Township. They operate 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday. Little plug there. And overall, I'd say we're very encouraged by this first quarter of data. As you can see, I would say at the bare minimum, they have demonstrated that they have the capacity to meet the pre-existing demand that was left over from FlexRide users. In fact, we actually had 100 more rides in quarter one of 2026 with People's Express than we did in quarter one under FlexRide in 2025, which I was pretty very, very pleasantly surprised by. I figured it would take them a little bit to get the word out and set up their operational structure here in the township, but they've already exceeded what we saw last quarter with FlexRide, so that's great. Obviously, there are other reasons for that. The expanded boundaries, the senior millage funding helps with that, certainly, but still, I think we see other signs that utilization is going to continue to increase. Obviously, that tends to happen with transit services as the weather gets warmer, but also, if you look down, 3/4 down your page, on the first page of the People's Express report, the trip purposes little table there, you'll see there's a pretty steady increase in work and medical and, just work and medical trips. We figure those trips are far more likely to be recurring on a regular basis, and, so that would suggest to us that utilization will continue to increase as not only as the word gets out more, but, as people continue to book those reoccurring trips and make them a regular part of their schedule, essentially. And the last thing I'll call your attention to on the People's Express side, you'll see that trips out of the community actually outnumber in-community trips by a fair margin. That was a big piece, I know, when the board was considering the switch over to People's Express for curb-to-curb service, this sort of aspect of like regional connectivity. So it's encouraging to see that people are using it to get across the county, not just in Pittsfield Township. People's Express has committed to provide some data on the geography of like trip origination and ending points too. So I think that'll be really useful. Hopefully next time we bring a report to you, you all will be able to see where people are going, where their trips are starting and ending in the township and beyond. So I think that'll help us target our outreach efforts and things like that as well. And then the last thing I'll say about People's Express, nothing strictly data related, that's present in your report, but I would just say we haven't received a ton of written feedback from residents on the service, but what we have received has been positive, I would say. We have gotten a few complaints that have been in your board packets in recent months that have mostly centered around the scheduling system, both conflicts and the accessibility of the call-in system itself. So we're continuing conversations with People's Express as to how to improve that aspect of the service. And I would just say they've been great partners across the board and very happy with the partnership so far. So that's all I have. I am happy to answer any questions.
I just have one real comment, but aside from that, thank you very much for working on this, because I know We were a bit under the gun when we were first deciding on whether to go with People Express, and I think that they are doing a good job. I hope they are. I'd be very interested. In fact, I think I heard you say that they might be able to provide us data from point to point, like, are they getting the bus in Ypsi and then taking it to Ann Arbor? I think that number would be very interesting, and that's not to say that I think that we should cut off that point-to-point thing, because they either got to, for somebody to be charged and for us to know how much we're charged, they have to be in the township and then go out? Am I thinking about that correctly?
That is how this data is presented. The only trips that they're showing are those with either an origination or an ending point in the township, so no pass-through trips or anything like that. I believe that was your question.
I think that would be interesting to know, but I do know that, I have never used public transportation regularly, and very little at all, but I do understand the whole theory that it's really important to actually be committed to public transportation, because if you're not providing even the pass-throughs, people come to not rely on it. I do feel like one thing that I had been interested in is when we got all this Lyft and Ubers and new service, taxi drivers on demand, right? That I thought that the public service game was done. But it seems to be, people rely on bus services, and it is cheaper, and it does seem more safer for some reason. I don't know. That's just me. Yeah, and I would just like to say I would be interested because I think I'm just curious about the point-to-point. So thank you very much. So that was just a comment.
Yeah, no, thank you for the question. And yes, I did. You heard me correctly. They have indicated that they'll provide that data moving forward. We haven't determined whether that'll be on a quarterly, semi-annual, annual basis or anything like that, but that data will be coming at some point. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate
I
this.
do have another question, well, a comment and a question. The first comment I was going to make is, one of the things I really liked about People's Express, outside of, they did a great job presenting, and it seems like they're having a great job of follow-through, but they're serving an area of our township that used to not be served, right? The northeast side of our township, and I'm very grateful because there are a lot of people that have a need of this service that live in those communities. So I just want to make that statement. I'm grateful that they're doing that in those communities. I think that you named something that I don't have a prescription solve for, but I'd like us to noodle this with our partners at People's Express, is we collectively as policymakers and as communications folks, we hear the squeaky wheel, but we don't necessarily hear how are things going. If there's a way they can incorporate like a CSAT, like a customer satisfaction score into this data, and particularly that way we can look at how that customer satisfaction across the township plays out, because that might identify hot spots of, there's a demand that, is not really, this service, because of the amount of demand in areas being underserved. We may see differences in that CSAT across the township, so it'd just be good to see that if they had a way to provide that to us with this data.
Yeah, I appreciate that suggestion, Trustee Praybeck. My suspicion is that is something that they're likely already collecting, maybe not on a township or city-by-city basis or anything like that, but I would guess that's something that they have ready access to, and that, they would be able to sort through and geocode or something by that nature. But yeah, we will certainly look into that. I think that's an excellent suggestion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more comments? Yeah, I appreciate Debbie Almecker's work on this, and Director West and the committee that's been working on this. And I personally appreciate the breakdown of the numbers, too, from People's Express that we have not seen before in the past, and it's very helpful. And the deputy continues to work with them on that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. It's already in the packet, so we don't need to receive it or anything, right? So I will ask for a motion for 9.1, please.
Madam Chair, move to adopt a resolution extending a temporary moratorium on the approval of data centers, Resolution 26-11.
Support.
Okay, any discussion on this one? This is basically just to extend our current moratorium, and so we can continue to work on a robust ordinance that is planned to go to the Planning Commission in June to start the process, to get that going. So this just gives us more time. Because we really have been being more thorough, watching everything happen around us, working with additional lawyers and consultants to make sure we get this right. Okay, may I ask for a roll call?
Supervisor Riley?
Yes.
Clerk Anzaldi?
Yes.
Trustee Urta Thompson?
Yes.
Trustee Jaffer?
Yes.
Trustee Braybeck?
Yes.
Madam Supervisor, you have 5 yeas.
Thank you. All right, it is adopted. May I please have a motion for 9.2?
Madam Chair, move to authorize the supervisor and clerk to enter into agreement with Arbor Farms Association for the release of bond claim funds in the amount of $275,000 for the completion of outstanding development obligations with Arbor Farms Development, subject to the Township Attorney approval.
Second.
Okay, discussion on this one. I know Director West is here. I know we had some residents talk about it earlier. I don't know if anybody would like to hear a little more detail about the situation or if that was enough to hear earlier. If you'd like a recap.
I kind of would just like the very short
The
recap.
Cliff Notes is, yeah, okay. I
The
know.
Cliff Notes,
Because
if you please.
I know this has been
I-
definitely something that's been worked on for a while, and it's a long story, but maybe Director West can capsize it best she can, and, yeah.
Good evening, trustees. I'll try to give you Cliff Notes. It is a long-standing issue and a convoluted issue at that. The long and short of it is that the developer, we were in a development agreement with HRS in order to have the roads completed as part of the project in Arbor Farms subdivision. They were public roads originally. Throughout that process and prior to my time in what was municipal services and is now community development, there were some weird decisions made along the way by HRS directly, not the township and not the road commission, to build out those roads without the proper authorizations through the road commission. And that created a situation where the road commission had to make a decision that those roads would have to be turned private. That decision was made while HRS was still in operation. And so we still fully expected that HRS was going to complete those roads. As some of the residents in the neighborhood will attest to, there were many issues that HRS had in that community prior to having perhaps some financial issues. And then eventually there was a death of one of the primary members that was leading the charge for that development. And at that point, they were no longer communicating in any way, shape, or form. You know, by the time I stepped into this, they were already pretty much not communicating. I think we communicated with them exactly once, and their response was, "We don't care what happens at this point, we're not doing anything." And that was to us and to our attorney, to which we had no alternative solution other than to seek a claim against the bond funds in order to have that work completed. But we were also in a really weird position because those roads had already been converted to private roads by definition of the road commission at that point. Therefore, we could not complete those roads as the township. We had to have a conversation with the Arbor Farms Homeowners Association about them completing them because they would be beholden to the maintenance of those roads after they were completed. So it got really tricky, and that's why we started having conversations with the Arbor Farms Homeowners Association, trying to first get a grasp of their understanding of the history of this, also try to explain the situation from our side of it as far as what we were understanding. It was the completion of the existing roads. There was some site cleanup on a couple of lots that they had left debris and materials from the construction over there. And then there is the disconnection of Foothills Drive, and the easement was not secured for that from the developer. We have been in communication with BP trying to negotiate on behalf of Arbor Farms. They obviously require engineering information, and so the homeowners association has, since been in communication with them as well. We were not making any more headway. In fact, I have kudos to the homeowners association because they got even further than we did in those conversations to try to secure that easement information. So we got to the point where we sought a claim. You saw that come at a previous board meeting for the full amount. Now, I will tell you that it is unusual for an insurance company to say, sure, we'll give you all the money back. But because this is such a difficult and complicated situation, they were agreeable after quite a bit of negotiation to give us the full amount of the bond back. And we are releasing the full amount of the bond over to the association. There's no other funds to claim for it. The township, doesn't invest in private roads, so that's another precarious situation of this. So we can't offer money above and beyond what the bond claim amount is. So we are at the point where our negotiation with them included sending the money over to Arbor Farms Association so that they could complete the roads, that they would complete the site cleanup work on those parcels that were remaining, and that they would give their best faith effort to make the connection at Foothills Drive. The connection at Foothills Drive does not directly impact the Arbor Farms Association. It was a stub that was built for future development. Unfortunately, because of the duration of this project, Arbor Oaks has been fully developed without the stub that they should have needed for a secondary emergency access. And so that also creates a little bit of a tricky situation, both for Arbor Farms, because they don't really need it, and for Arbor Oaks, because we have heard from them that they don't necessarily want it to be fully open either. However, for emergency services purposes, we do require that you have 2 emergency access points in case something were to happen and they couldn't get into the front of that. So we felt that the best negotiating term was to try to have them make that connection, understanding that that easement is going to be challenging and potentially pricey to obtain and to build those roads. Secondary to that, originally the development agreement was for it to be a fully open public road. And so our conversation turned to making it an emergency access only in hopes that they wouldn't have to construct it to full capacity, which might reduce some of the cost and burden. Quite frankly, I don't know that we care that it's a gravel road that can hold a fire truck that goes across it with a gate there. We just want to make sure that there's an access point for an emergency. We also want to make sure that for the residents that live in that area, we've heard from many of them that it's beautified to some extent. If you haven't driven over there, it doesn't look great right now. So that was a long version of where we're at with that. I'm sorry, but if you have questions,
This is like,
I'm happy to try to answer.
This is like day one of Director Wex taking over this position, pretty much. She's been working on this this entire time she took over her new position, so.
Correct.
And piecing this all together from history, from yes.
And there was, just to be perfectly clear, we've been as transparent as we can about this process. We've been communicating with the Homeowners Association in expectation that they would communicate with their residents. There was also a Homeowners Association meeting where the supervisor and I attended to try to explain the complexity of this issue so that people would understand that. And that launched into sort of a stream of communications with the Homeowners Association to negotiate where we're at today.
I feel like I'm talking a lot today, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I've sat on both sides of the issues. It's very fascinating because before I was elected, we had an issue in Hickory Point where I live, and we pressed the township to try and get the bond money because we had incomplete stuff in our homeowner association or in our subdivision. So I do know how frustrating, convoluted and complicated it is from the homeowner side. But I would just like to say, I know you have been really working hard at this, and I know it is very complicated with all these little twists and turns that this is a private, this is a public, they did this. And it is really hard to imagine, oh yeah, this, and just like with any business or any contractual obligations, there are many sometimes twists and turns that you can't even think about to put in the contract. And so I always think about those things, so thank you for working on it, figuring it out. And I just think sometimes, like in these situations, nobody is going to be 100% satisfied. And that is the truth of in any contractual issue that comes about. No one's going to be 100% satisfied. But I do think, you guys have been really working hard to try and make the best out of a not-so-great situation. So I just would like to note that. And then the other thing that I have always been curious about, and just maybe would be good information for this board, is how do we determine what the bond amount is going to be about, or before? I mean, is there a formula that we do, or is that something that's like process-wise, like, hey, it's going to be 10%? Because otherwise, we would say, oh, this is $1 million project, we're going to make them bond for $1 million, which we can't do. It's got to be some amount, so.
So there is a formula. I can't give you the formula off the top of my head.
I won't ask for it.
Calculated based on the development costs. However, this is a unique situation because, and I don't have the exact date, but we went back, whenever the situation happened, I believe it was in 2022, when the final determination was made from the Road Commission. I'm sorry, I might be getting that date wrong. Whenever they said they can no longer be public roads, we went back and we increased the bond amount with the insurance company because we knew at that point that the road still had not been complete. I also actually want to backtrack just a second. I'm sorry to make this even longer, but part of this process is that the original phase of this subdivision was built by a different developer altogether and then sold off to HRS. So roads were complete in one part of it, but not in the other. And so there is a cutoff line in the middle of two streets in that neighborhood that are fully paved, and then it becomes unpaved. So that's a lovely addition to that as well. So the bond amount was increased with the expectation that if the roads weren't completed, at the time, of course, that it would help cover the cost of completing those roads. But as we know, the prices increase daily, minute by minute.
I have no further questions.
Thank you.
I know it's quite a story, but I think it's important for everybody to understand how much went involved and how the HOA and the residents and Director West have really put into this to make this as good as possible based on the situation. So, and hence I think we'll go ahead and ask for a vote on this one. Yeah, I went to discussion, okay, yes. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that passes without any question. We're happy to get that for you. May I have a motion for 9.3?
Madam Chair, I move to authorize the My Deal purchase of one Ford Explorer from Spirit Ford for the police department with upfitting by Priority 1 Emergency at a cost not to exceed $61,500.67.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on this one? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, passes. I know the director is here, but I think we're good. All right, may I have a motion for 9.4?
Madam Chair, I move to authorize the supervisor and clerk to enter into an agreement with Vanston O'Brien Incorporated for the community center parking lot expansion for a cost not to exceed $345,200.54, subject to the final driveway access approval by Washtenaw County Road Commission and the Township Attorney approval.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? We do have the director of building here as well for any questions. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. May I please have a motion for 9.5?
Madam Chair, I move to authorize the supervisor and clerk to enter into an agreement with Washtenaw County Road Commission for the 2026 local road resurfacing program for a cost not to exceed $507,138, subject to the Township Attorney approval. Wow.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? This is the road commission, even though we haven't got the money or at least the road commission hasn't heard from the state about the revenue sharing type money that will go for the local roads. This is sort of their olive branch in the meantime to up our match to, I think it's $507,000. So we're matching it to the max, so we can get $1 million worth of road funding based on what they're matching, so. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes. May I please have a motion for 9.6, the new one?
Madam Chair, I move to authorize the supervisor and clerk to enter into a contract service agreement with Fair Food Network for the 2026 Double Up Food Box Program, subject to the township attorney approval.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? We do have our new farmer's market manager here, if you have any questions. And I just want to make sure we comment that the opening day had a record 552 people attending, which was a great, our best opening day ever. So a little shout out there. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, all passed. All right, may I please have a motion for 10.1?
Madam Chair, I move to adopt at second reading an ordinance to add Chapter 19 non-discrimination ordinance number 344.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Deputy Elmacker is still hanging in there with us, if you have any questions. Okay, all in favor? Oh, that's our roll call. Caught myself.
Clerk Anzaldi?
Yes.
Trustee Urda Thompson?
Yes.
Trustee Jaffer?
Yes.
Trustee Braybeck?
Yes.
Supervisor Riley?
Yes.
Madam Supervisor, you have 5 yeas.
Happy to hear that one passed. Thank you all for that. And thank you to Deputy Elmacker, as always, for doing that. Okay, moving on to liaison or trustee reports. Do we have any?
Madam Chair, I do have a summary of action from May 8, 2026 Planning Commission meeting. The Planning Commission held a public hearing and voted to recommend the Township Board of Trustees approve zoning ordinance modern language. The Planning Commission approved with condition the preliminary site plan for CSPA 26-10 Liquor Expo. The next commission meeting will be, Planning Commission meeting will be May 21st, 2026.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
I attended the Historical Commission last night, and it was brought to my attention that the community garden was voted down by the Historical Society of Sutherland Wilson Farm. Best of my knowledge, nothing was given in writing of why they turned down the community garden. So I don't understand why, but that's all I have to share with the board members. I was a little disappointed because I know we have about 36 family members that want to have a garden, and they won't be able to do it this year. So I was a little disappointed, and I don't know why they turned it down.
And just to piggyback on that, we are going to be attending the meeting and continuing those discussions. It does sound like there are some concerns, and per our agreement, 2010 agreement with the society, we all have to be in complete agreement to do those sorts of things. We want to make sure that we're in complete agreement, and I think it just needs to be vetted out more. So I think it's not necessarily a hard no forever, but I think they have more questions and more concerns, and so I think the discussion will continue. But yeah, at this point, it is not going to happen this season. Correct.
Thank you.
Any more comments or? I actually would like to say something. We know that, you can notice that Trustee Mills is not here this evening again, and unfortunately, she has submitted her resignation. Her resignation came in after the board packet, so I was not able to put it in there. I know I put an item on the fly for the double up food bucks, but that's because we didn't want to have people not having those for the next market. This one we do have time. We have 45 days from the resignation. And that was effective on May 5th. So at the next meeting, we're bringing that resignation. She's moving out of town. She's moving to Florida. So she had kind words to say, and her resignation letter will be in the next packet. But we have many people who have expressed interest. And so luckily we have a good pool to pick from. And so at the next meeting, we will bring not only the resignation, but also a recommendation for a replacement. So, and it is fortunate when Clerk Anzaldi was able to confirm that we are past the deadline, so this person would finish out the term. Okay. So, all right. I just want to make sure that was out there. Obviously, it's something that we'll miss Trustee Mills, but she definitely said with tears in her eyes that this was one of the best experiences of her life, so, yes. All right, we'll go ahead and open it up for public comment too. Any person may come forward at this time to address the board. Anyone who wishes to speak is requested but not required to state his or her name and address for the record. Is there anybody like to speak? Mr. Abel?
I'll be fast, I promise. Director West, I've never met you. Just thank you for your very brief, quick summary of item 9.2. What she said in 3 minutes is more than I've got from my homeowner association in 3 years. So if they could have communicated as well as you communicated in 3 minutes, I probably would have sent you so many emails. But they got the money, and the work's going to be done in 2 weeks. So exciting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lakeville. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak before we? All right. If not, I will go ahead and ask for a motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair, I move to adjourn.
I second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, meeting is adjourned at 8:40. Thank you all for coming.